up, manifestors? This is All Up in Your Biz with Yvonne Trackian. I have a manifestation story for you. If you're following me on the podcast or tuning in or following me on Instagram, you will know that on February 10th, I wrote down in my Pause Penny manifestation box 6 neuroscientists that I wanted on my podcast. And then my friend said, you really need to add Joe Dispenza. So I added his name as the 7th person. By the end of the February, the first month, I had interviewed one of those neuroscientists, top neuroscientist and neurosurgeon, James Doty. And this week, I got to interview a second person on that list. So I'm telling you, manifestation works. When you believe in yourself, when you take action, when you let it go, and you don't ask how. And this clip this week, this episode this week is a little reminder of that. We are taking you back to the best manifestation clips with James Doty, the neurosurgeon and neuroscientist, Anne-Sophie Fluri, neuroscientist, and top manifestation coach, Matt Cooke. High vibes and happy manifesting, folks.
I am here with a neuroscientist, Anne-Sophie Fluri.
I've been following your posts on LinkedIn for a while now, and I'm just so glad that we had the chance to connect and actually do something like this.
With positive affirmations, so I do 3 affirmations every day on my Instagram stories, and they depend on whatever I feel. Like let's say right now I'm like trying to make more sales in the business and all of that, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is, it's tough. It's a little bit more tough to be an entrepreneur than it is a lawyer, especially when you're starting out. But I say to myself, like, everything always works out for me. I trust the timing of my life. I surrender and let go. Does it still work if you're kind of forcing yourself to believe that? If it's repeated, like, how do affirmations actually work?
I think that's such an interesting point that you make there, because a lot of the pushback that I hear as well when I speak to my friends or colleagues about this is that they feel like they're lying to themselves if they were to say, I am successful, I'm a millionaire, I run a 6-figure business, whatever it is. And I do understand that, because I'm the same. You can't just go from 0 to 100, because if you have that doubt, then the positive affirmations aren't really going to have the effect that you're hoping for them to have, because actually what you're focusing on is not the positive affirmation and the goal setting that's required to get there. You're focusing on the self-doubt. And so if you keep affirming something that actually keeps, bringing that doubt further and further and like front to mind, then I can see why that might not work. But there are ways to get around that. So, instead of saying I'm gonna earn so and so much, $6 million this year, you can start by saying I allow abundance in my life, and just, changing the benchmark from absolute to something that's just maybe more welcoming something into your life. If you don't feel comfortable saying I am beautiful, then how about I feel beautiful, or I will allow myself to feel beautiful today, and just slowly, working on those limiting beliefs and undoing them until those become second nature, until you've said them so many times that they become real and your brain is perceiving them as true, and then just, taking it up further and further.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because like, even you don't have to say like I am abundant and a money magnet. You can say like I am capable of achieving great things. I am worthy.
Mm-hmm.
I am worthy of this. I am confident. And you just tell yourself the little things, and then over time and over time, they just actually add up. It's definitely something that I do with my kids. I actually love doing affirmations and practicing gratitude. I think it's definitely a good way to start building resilience. And I really do believe that kids need resilience these days, especially with like social media and all of that. Jim, you are I'm not going to list everything you are because you are an accomplished man, but neurosurgeon, New York Times bestseller, international speaker, entrepreneur, compassion researcher, and you are about to launch a book coming out in May called Mind Magic: The Neuroscience of Manifestation and How It Changes Everything, which I am so excited about.
As you know from the start of my book, the first sentence is, the universe doesn't give a fuck about you. And it's interesting because I think that answers your question.
Yeah, and I love when you say, and if you don't mind me saying, it may not sound like it, but this is good news. And as you go on, it says, no, the universe doesn't give a fuck about you because it has no fucks to give. And I just had to, I read that and I just thought it was so funny because it's, you know, what I do is like, I tend to see people do this all the time. Like I have on my keychain, trust the universe, but I'm not necessarily, now, one thing that we probably are different with, I do believe there's something more, and we'll get into that a little bit later of my personal reasons why. But I always accept that everybody can have a different opinion, and we should be okay with that, right? But when I say trust the universe, I'm almost trying to disassociate it from myself, that I'm just allowing to let it go. It's like how that psychiatrist Doc Ammon says, name your brain, because you can say, you know, your brain's called Patricia, whatever. Patricia, take a hike. It's like almost having that ability to just let it go, not saying it's going out to something else, but it's you're kind of just removing yourself from it. So that's the kind of way I look at the universe. But you're saying this is all within your power, which is actually quite an amazing thing.
No, I think that's right. Now, I know you probably haven't read the book because it's a long book, but in some ways that goes full circle in that statement, because ultimately what it says is that you're the universe. And so it's changing the narrative, which many people have, which is there's some entity, being, magic, quote unquote, law of attraction, which has been misused. And it's, I'm going to rely on that, and that's going to get me through. And if I just do X, Y, and Z. But the reality is, and this gets perhaps more into spiritual or metaphysical discussions, one, all of us are connected, but two, each of us has immense power within ourselves. And when you use terminology like, I'm going to look to the universe, or if X event happens, then I know that X, Y, Z is now going to happen. And in many ways, we're giving away our own agency and not recognizing the power each of us has within us. And I think it's a very, very important distinction. As an example, I'm sure you've probably been in the situation, and I think it's common for a lot of people, where you have some dream, aspiration, goal, and you share it with people. And then people go, that'll never happen. You can't do it. And here you have people, oftentimes family members even, or people close to you, who are making these horrible statements, diminishing your power or the possibilities you have to manifest or make changes in your life. And the reason is because many of these individuals are terrified of what you might accomplish, or recognize that they do not have that ability to manifest or change things. So by diminishing you, it actually gives them comfort in the sense that it justifies them not doing something. And this is really a very, very sad thing, and it's very unfortunate. But that being said, it's human nature. And many people don't have that degree of self-awareness or insight. But when you respond to that, and I talk about that some a little bit further in the book, is when you listen to that, each time you accept that statement, you give away your power. And once you say to yourself, it's not possible, I can't, that becomes truth. And truth actually is for you to decide. And what I mean by that is, again, you are the one who can decide to wake up, let's say at 6 in the morning to do something. There's no magical power out there that's telling you to do that. And you truly have an immense of power that you hold within yourself. But every time you listen to somebody who is negative, if you will, you give some of that away.
If you want to manifest your dream life, then what are you waiting for? Pause Penny has created an amazing manifestation box to help you manifest your dreams. It is backed by Neuroscience. 7 simple steps, and the box tells you how to do it all. Grab your manifestation box at pausepenny.com and use the code podcast20 for 20% off. So, Matt, can you tell me how you, like, where did it start for you? Where did manifestation start in your life for you?
A lot of people have heard this story, but it's really important because it's the foundations. So 5 years ago, February 2019, was when my whole life changed. I wasn't spiritual at all then. I was an estate agent here in the UK, corporate job, 9 to 5, didn't believe in anything other than sort of the reality I was in. And it was a typical evening. I was lying in bed with my wife. We were watching Netflix together on our laptop. And I just decided to turn over and go to sleep, but I was still awake and my wife was still listening to Netflix. And then out of nowhere, this very strange sensation spread across my whole body. It was a vibration that gradually intensified to a point where it wasn't painful, but I was just intrigued. And it genuinely felt like I was hovering above my bed. And then I heard a very high-pitched ring in both my ears. And then it went completely silent. And I heard a voice. And the voice sounded like it was the opposite end of a sports hall, getting closer and closer. And it said, "Hi, Matt, it's Mum. Can you hear me?" And it blew me away because my mum had passed over 18 months before that in July 2017. So here I am, I'm awake and my mum's talking to me. I was lost for words. I was literally mind blown, as you can imagine. You want to believe in a thing called the afterlife when you lose someone like that, but I had no sort of proof. I hadn't ever spoken to a medium or anything like that. And as I was just chatting back, my wife, Corisande, just gently nudged me and she said, "Matt, who are you talking to?" And when I turned over to tell her and then turned back, my mum had gone. So that was the start, because right there in that moment, I realized that there is more to this reality than meets the eye. And I'm one of those people that dives down rabbit hole. I have to find the answer to things. So while still working my job, every spare hour I had, I was trying to figure out how I could connect with her again. Because that's what I wanted. But the first time, I want everyone to remember this, it was not expected. I didn't want it to happen. It just happened. It's really important that. Because that's also now the foundations of what I teach with manifestation. So anyway, as I'm exploring, I realized I didn't want to be a medium, but I was really interested in just what's behind the veil in a way. And that's when I stumbled across quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and started to realize very quickly that actually it is just a bit of an illusion. Everything is just energy. Science tells us that. If we break everything down to its purest form, everything, you get to atoms. Below atoms, you get to subatomic particles. Below that, you get into the quantum realm, energy. And science now shows us that energy creates all things physical. So I was obsessed with this thing called energy, especially knowing that the field it comes from is infinite. And I then, through that research, found manifestation. As you can imagine, just going down those rabbit holes, Bob Proctor, Esther and Jerry Hicks, Joe Dispenza, Neville Goddard, all these people started emerging. And for me, it was just like, oh, okay, so everything's energy vibrating at different frequencies. And it honestly just clicked for me. It was like a light bulb gone off. It was a no-brainer, because every single time I was hearing these people talk, I just kept relating it back to what happened with my mum, how I connected with her. And I want everyone to just remember this, that what happened, you see, is my body somehow, its vibration changed unconsciously. And the best analogy of that was like tuning into a radio station. You want to listen to an exact radio station, you've got the crackles first, you're tuning yourself in, and then you hit that clear signal and you pick up the information at the other end. But you have to become that radio station first in order to listen to it. So somehow, whether it was on my mum's side, I don't know, unconsciously I aligned myself and my mum lowered hers and we connected. And I've had many mediums tell me since that, Matt, do you know that's why we're called mediums? We help people connect on the middle. So that's how I got here. That's how I found manifestation.
So this is why I love manifestation in also the science side, but a little bit more of the spiritual side. But this is where people, because, you know, I've had neuroscientists on that are like, it's nope, no coincidences. There's no such things as coincidences. It's a way of goal setting. And I'm like,
No.
but no, I don't think that, because, for example, I'll just tell you this story I had when I had my 3 miscarriages. I said that I was going to have twins, 2 boys at Christmas. And then I had my son, and I had Polly passed away, and I had a daughter, and then I let it go, and I was like, done, you know. But then I got pregnant with twins, 2 boys, and they came on Christmas Eve. Wow. And I was like, wow. How? Like, come on. How does this? These were natural pregnancies. So, like, I personally believe that we, with our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs, we absolutely can create our reality. And is that the way you look at manifestation?
Yes, I'll tell you why. In quantum mechanics, if you've ever heard of the observer effect, the observer in quantum mechanics can essentially collapse a wave of energy into physical reality. For your listeners to research the double slit experiment, they essentially, if a scientist is observing energy, it will collapse into a single unit, a particle. The moment it's not being looked at, observed, it returns back to energy, and it shows what's called an interference pattern. So only when that sort of experiment, or let's say when energy is being observed, does it turn from energy into physical reality. So it sort of just proves there for a moment that, you know, where we place our attention is where we place our energy. And we are observers, we are consciousness, and we have this incredible ability to collapse an infinite field of energy into physical reality. The problem is on that, the question is, what are we observing in our life? So if science now tells us that 95% of who we are is subconsciously programmed, right? Then most of the time, the majority of the people are unconsciously observing their reality. So I looked at this with my own clients. You know, they're not even conscious about how they're talking to themselves, what thoughts are going through their mind, how they're feeling. And therefore, they keep manifesting and they keep seeing the same patterns emerging in their own life. But the moment manifestation, in my opinion, doesn't start with a clear vision. It starts with self-observation. It starts with observing yourself. The moment my clients observe themselves and they become conscious of their unconscious, and they become conscious of how they're thinking, feeling, and acting and behaving, and they start mentally rehearsing a new future, what actually starts to happen there really is they've changed their observation. And if quantum mechanics dictates that where we observe turns energy into physical reality, then most of the time people are unconsciously observing and collapsing, and it's called collapse of the wave function. They're collapsing energy into physical reality, and they're continually manifesting the same outcomes. Whereas when they start, let's say, meditation, rehearsing a new future, they'll say to me, Matt, you're never going to believe it. This happened. Matt, this came out of the blue. But of course I know why. And it's because they're observing something new and they're actually catching themselves falling unconscious. And another experiment, which is truly fascinating, is an experiment with a sort of a number generator. And this number generator spits out 50-50 zeros and ones. And that is it. And they've run this experiment like thousands of times. I even had someone, a coaching client of mine, who's got a master's degree in statistics, and he studied that too. And he said it's an actual impossibility for it to be any other way than 50-50. Yet when this experiment was done, they asked participants to hold the intention 1 more times than 0. And that experiment eventually yielded more 1s than 0s, even though it's an impossibility for that to be the case. So again, tying it in with the observer effect in quantum mechanics, it confirms that if someone's observing more 1s appear over a period of time. So I think there is proof now to this. It's not been labeled scientifically proven in terms of manifestation, but I think we can read between the lines.